Emotional unavailability is a skill. You learnt it for a very good reason, and at some point, it saved you. There are two schools of thought on this, and they are at war. One side argues it's a deep, unchangeable part of who you are. The other argues it's a strategy you can discard. Both have a point, and both miss something crucial. Where do you stand? By the end of this, you might change your mind. The first argument is rooted in our earliest moments. It comes from attachment theory. This theory suggests that our capacity for intimacy as adults is a direct echo of our first relationships with caregivers. If a child cries and is consistently soothed, they learn a simple, powerful lesson. Expressing a need brings connection. Their nervous system wires itself for closeness. But what if a child cries and is ignored, or worse, punished for it? They learn a different lesson. A harder lesson. Expressing a need brings rejection or danger. So the brain, in its incredible efficiency, adapts. It begins to prune the neural pathways for emotional expression and vulnerability. Why keep a road open that only leads to a cliff? The child learns to self-soothe, to become a quiet island. They stop asking. They stop reaching. This becomes an automatic, subconscious process. Their body learns to associate the impulse for closeness with the biochemical signature of threat, adrenaline, cortisol, a tightening in the chest. As an adult, this person isn't consciously deciding to be distant. Their body is deciding for them. When a partner leans in for emotional intimacy, it feels like an attack. A 4-alarm fire starts in their nervous system. The impulse is to run, to shut down, to build the wall higher. It's a reflex as involuntary as pulling your hand from a hot stove. From this perspective, telling an emotionally unavailable person to just open up is like telling someone with a severe peanut allergy to just take a small bite. You're asking them to do something their body has encoded as a mortal threat. That sounds convincing. It feels like a life sentence. But there's a problem with seeing it only this way. The second argument sees the same fortress and asks a different question. Who's maintaining it? This view reframes emotional unavailability away from a fixed trait and toward an active, ongoing strategy. It requires constant work to maintain. The person is perpetually on guard. They are scanning conversations for emotional landmines. They are managing physical distance. They're deploying tactical deflections like humor or changing the subject. With military precision, they fill their schedules until there's no empty space for a difficult feeling to land. These are all actions. They are skills honed through years of practice. Emotional unavailability is a full-time job with long hours. And if it's a job, you can quit. If they are skills, new skills can be learned. This is the promise of neuroplasticity. The brain that learned to shut down is the same brain that can learn to open up. The mechanism is identical. It requires new experiences that provide new data. It requires small, survivable acts of vulnerability that don't end in catastrophe. A moment of sharing a real feeling that is met with acceptance. A small risk taken that leads to connection, not rejection. Each successful experiment begins to rewrite the code. It forges a new neural pathway. A tiny dirt road at first, but with repetition, it becomes a path, then a road, then a highway. This sounds hopeful, almost too hopeful, and it ignores the powerful forces that keep the old strategy in place. The truth, as usual, is more complicated than either side admits. The pattern is deep, and it is also actively maintained. The key is the environment. An emotionally unavailable person doesn't exist in a vacuum. They subconsciously build a world around them that validates and perpetuates their strategy. A stasis machine. Think about who they often date. They frequently attract partners who are highly emotionally expressive, people who are willing to do the emotional work for the both of them. This dynamic is a perfect feedback loop. The chaser makes constant bids for connection, which feels overwhelming to the avoider, causing them to pull away. This withdrawal then triggers the chaser to pursue even harder. The system is perfectly, tragically stable. The avoider gets to remain in their defended state because someone else is carrying the entire emotional load of the relationship. They've outsourced the labor. This extends beyond romance. They might choose a career in finance, law, engineering, surgery, where emotional detachment is not just tolerated, but celebrated as a sign of professionalism. Their workplace becomes a sanctuary where their core defensive strategy is mistaken for a strength. Their friends might be the same way, forming a circle where conversations skim the surface and vulnerability is treated with suspicion. Their entire world is a carefully constructed ecosystem designed to prove one thing: the walls are necessary. The environment doesn't just reflect who they are. Over time, it decides it. And there is a distinctly gendered texture to this. Society often hands boys and men the blueprints for this fortress from a young age. They're taught that anger is the only acceptable male emotion, that vulnerability is weakness, that their value lies in what they can provide and achieve, not in what they feel. The man who can't name his feelings isn't a failure of character. He is a success story of his cultural conditioning. For women, the script is different but can lead to the same place. It might look like the cool girl who swallows her needs to be chosen, the hyper-competent woman who buries her exhaustion under a mountain of accomplishments, the caregiver who attends to everyone's needs but her own. The fortress may be decorated differently, with softer colors and more welcoming furniture. The function is identical. Keep everyone out. Keep the real self in. But who is the chaser in this dynamic? It's easy to see them as the victim, the one desperate for a connection that is endlessly withheld. But their role is more complex. Their pursuit, their demands for intimacy, their emotional escalations. These actions, while understandable, become the very data the avoider uses to justify the wall. See, the avoider's nervous system concludes. Connection is chaotic, it's demanding, it's unsafe. The fortress is working. The chaser, in their attempt to tear down the walls from the outside, is ironically providing the stones and mortar to build them higher from the inside. The system needs both players to function. One person's defense is perfectly coupled with the other person's desire. Change the behavior of one, and the entire system destabilizes. But who should change first? The person who is starving for connection, or the person who is terrified of it? There's a reason the person inside the fortress hesitates. The walls may be a prison, but they are a familiar prison. And they work. For a time. They protect from the sharp edges of rejection and the terrifying messiness of human intimacy. But the cost accumulates over decades. It shows up as a string of failed relationships. It manifests as a career that hits a ceiling because leadership often requires a level of emotional intelligence they can't access. It looks like a phone book full of contacts, but no one to call at 3 a.m. during a crisis. The loneliness is a slow, accumulating tax on the soul and on the body. This is where the debate leaves the realm of psychology and enters physiology. Chronic loneliness and social isolation are profoundly inflammatory states. Studies have linked them to a higher risk of heart disease, stroke, dementia, and a weakened immune system. The same stress hormones that fire up during a perceived emotional threat, when chronically activated, begin to corrode the body from the inside out. The fortress built to protect you from imaginary tigers is now poisoning your well. The survival strategy has become a terminal illness, and yet, even knowing this, the walls remain, because the alternative feels so much worse. This is the core of it, the final piece. It is about threat perception. To the person inside, being asked to become vulnerable feels like being asked to step out into a hailstorm without a coat. You can tell them the storm has passed. You can show them the blue sky. But all their life experience tells them the storm is always coming. Their entire body is braced for impact. The change required is not intellectual, it is somatic. It is convincing a terrified nervous system to stand down after a lifetime on high alert. The process is slow, it's non-linear. It involves taking a small step out, getting drenched by a sudden downpour, and retreating back inside, convinced you were right all along. It requires a level of courage that is hard to appreciate from the outside. It is the courage to risk the one thing you are most afraid of for a reward you've never truly experienced. Genuine, safe connection. So, where do you draw the line? Is emotional unavailability a cage you are locked in, built by a past you didn't choose? Or is it a fortress you are actively maintaining, a strategy that has outlived its usefulness? The truth is, the fortress and the cage are the same structure. It just depends on whether you're looking at it from the inside or the outside. The most important question is a different one. Who holds the key?